Hello, dear souls. Today we wish to speak to you about becoming an observer, but not in the traditional sense as we've been taught, where you dispassionately look and try to observe all those who are around you or whatever's happening without becoming involved in it. Today we wish to speak about how to be an observer for what is within you, how to observe yourself, so to speak. You see, this is a whole new way of being. This is a whole new way of being, to consider that you are observing what you consider yourself to be. You understand that if you're the observer and it's you that you're looking at, then the you that is looking is not the you that you think you are. You become this bigger, more expansive you. And this really comes down to understanding your identity. Many of us root our identity in our ego. Our thoughts move so fast that we believe we're our thoughts. And if we have a thought, then that must be something. Some people can pull back a little and realize they're not their thoughts, but they become their emotion, which is a bit more true, but still not the full essence of who you are. If you understand that you are the observer, then you understand that you are more than what this body encompasses, more than what this psychological complex of yourself. You become grander. To be the observer, you literally have to be in connection with your divine. And literally, your divine uses you as the observer to experience all that it is. Now, the advantages of looking at yourself through the eye of the observer is you're no longer just reacting to what's going on. You start to see that there's an essence of you that works automatically. Wow, look at these words that just came out of my mouth. Wow, look at these actions that I just took. And you realize that the part of you that is in the expression in the physical 3D is definitely a part of you, but is not the biggest part of you. When you get to become an observer of yourself, a lot of the stress that we carry as ourselves dissipates. Because rather than feel the stress, we observe, oh, I am in stress. Or the entity I call Peter is in stress. I am in connection with the divine. It's hard to do to just call it up and say, oh, I'm going to go into observer mode. But as you become more practiced at it, you can at any time. And the advantage is that if you're in the middle of something that is uncomfortable, feeling feelings or physical aches or pains or whatever it is that are causing you discomfort in the moment, you can pull back and say, oh, let me observe this. Instantly, what happens is you're flooded with the joy of being in connection to Source, because that is a state of bliss. And then that state of bliss that you are observes the aspect of you that was being stressful. And suddenly it's less stressful because there's bliss coming into you simply by observing what you're doing in the physicality of yourself or the mentality of yourself. I know this is kind of confusing. It's hard to wrap your head around. It's going to happen more and more automatically as we move into the higher dimensions. Until then, it's good to consider, oh, maybe I'll just pull back and observe a little bit. It's very hard to do when we're wrapped up in an emotion or we're stuck in a pain or an ache. It's very hard to say, okay, I'm going to pull back a little bit and see this as my expression rather than as me. You notice our language, right? Oh, I hurt, I'm sad. Right? That's a creation statement. Uh, we can back away from it a little bit by saying, I am feeling sad. I'm aware that my body is aching and hurt. Backs us away from it a little bit. But it's not a full step like observing. Oh, I'm a divine creation, and this physical expression of me is feeling this pain. As you start to do this, you'll feel more and more joy because you can't help it. That's what's coming in. And the pain you're feeling, the discomfort, the stress, the emotional problem will suddenly have a little bit of the edge taken off, and you'll have a little bit more awareness of how to continue the process or finish it or move out of it entirely. That's the beauty of becoming the observer. We wish to talk about love as an aspect of observation because this can become confusing. Observation in its purest form is love. Now, the notions we have in our physicality and our mentality about what love is, oh, I should feel this way, or I should attend these good thoughts to. And we consider that as love. And in this physical reality, of course, it is love. But in a higher sense, if you're in a state of observation and you're bringing those good thoughts or those good feelings or that heart opening to the observation, you're no longer in observation. You're now in that feeling state. So it's the difference between having an experience versus telling a story about the experience you are having. Now, of course, the story of love is a very good story, very, very wonderful, and one that should be celebrated and sung. But in the act of applying what we think is love to a situation, we're no longer being an observer of that situation. And therefore, we're bringing all the stuff that is in our physical 3D reality to that observation. So it's no longer the grand observation that it could be. Now, after you have the grand observation, which is in the state of connection because it is just simply you observing the truth of what it is, which of course is blissful. After you have that, you can tell whatever story you wish to tell. And it, of course, will be a loving story if you wish that to be your experience. But to do it during the experience then takes you out of the experience. The channel Peter first encountered this in a very interesting way. He was leading a class through a process of healing childhood wounds. Because he had done his work so much, he did not have anything in particular he was healing. And because of what was going on the planet at the time, he was thrown into a situation where he was in some very terrible places, what those of you call the dumbs, the undergrounds. And he was with some very terrible entities. Those of you call the reptilians. And they were doing horrible, horrible things to children. Peter found himself there. And he had no attachment one way or the other. No, oh, this is horrible, or no, I must love these children. None of that. He just observed what was going on. And in that observation, several very interesting things happened from his perspective. The first of which was that the negative beings were aware he was there and tried to, move him away from their place, but could not, because he could not be touched, because he was in total neutral observation. And because they did not hold that frequency, they could not do anything to him. The second thing that happened was that he saw the pain that was being transferred and caused to these poor children. And without thinking, without questioning, he acted automatically. He did not apply a story to it. He just started doing what was called to be done in the second without conscious thought. That was the process of Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. So he was doing Ho'oponopono for these children. And in that process, it literally drove away the entities of negativity because they couldn't be in that presence. Now, there was no, oh, let me love these kids or anything like that. It was just an automatic response that the divine was sending through him because he was an open channel at the time, because he was totally in an observation state. So this is what we wish to tell you about. If you can go to this observation state, and it'll take practice like anything, as you do it, you'll want to have your mind come in, and then it'll be whatever your mind brings in. But if you go to that observation state and you're there without an attachment, you're going to start to see that things will come through you automatically. And those are the things that you've been waiting to allow, that you've been desiring for the longest time in your life. And of course, you'll have whatever feeling you have while Peter was in that situation. It was not a feeling of bliss or love. It was a total feeling of neutrality. Oh, this is happening around me. But the result of it was holding that neutrality. It backed away the negativity because the negativity could not be in the presence of a neutral observation that was not judging it or condemning it or giving it a reaction in any way at all. And that's what drove the negativity out in that situation. So we wish you to consider that if you can get to the place where you observe yourself without telling any story, without applying what you should or should do, then you're going to open up to all kinds of expansion and growth. Now, as you progress along this process, of course, you're going to pull back in whatever degree you pull back and want to love yourself, nurture your inner child, support yourself when you're in pain. Of course, do that. But as you fill up with that, there's another level you can step back to, being the observer of yourself. And then as you continue to express the observer of yourself, you will find actions automatically happen. Words will be spoken, and it won't be you speaking them. It'll be your greater source coming through you because you're aligned to it now. Actions will take place. You'll do things. Wow, I just did that. And of course, we want to tell the story of, oh, what's right or wrong about these actions, but we don't know that. Perhaps when the channel Peter first encountered this, he was in a class and he was told of an older woman at a bus stop in India where it was common for men to be very abusive to women, and a man was beating his wife. And this older, tiny woman walked up to the man and slapped him, bigger than her, just slapped him. And the guy broke into tears. And it wasn't a matter of action or anger. She was in a place of observation, an awakened state of herself. And the divine just flowed through her. And it gave the perfect outcome where the man could look at his reaction and go, oh my God, what am I doing? And snap out of it and make a change. So as much as we think that violence shouldn't be met with violence, in this case it was, and it was the perfect solution. This is not to say violence should be meted out. This is to say, when you're in that open state of observation of who you truly are, and enjoy the expression of who you're being in the lower dimensions, third dimension, fourth dimension. Enjoy your mentality, enjoy your mind, and observe it for what it is. When you're in that state, you'll be guided naturally to express your sacred higher self, because that is the nature of being in that state of observation. So I know there's a lot to ponder here, and there's no clear process that's being given, steps to take. Just be aware of when you're observing yourself. Be aware of as you grow and as you become more deeply into your ascension and more into your fifth dimensional self. Be aware when you're in these states and enjoy them. Practice them, practicing, wow, this is different to just have expression come through me rather than have a story explain what's going on. We know you're limitless. We know you can and will do the most amazing things. And we'd like to encourage you to observe it and become even more amazing. Many blessings to you.